Hey guys, it's Ms. V. I am here in my home studio and I'm really bored, which is one of the reasons why I've decided I'm going to start trying to make videos and share things with you guys. This by no stretch of the imagination is something extra that I need everybody to do. This is just purely if you're as bored as I am and you just kind of want to get out there and play around with some art materials and just make something with me. So we're just going to keep it simple. I'm going to try to keep it short, although I can't make any promises. I have a tendency to ramble, as you know. So what are we going to be focusing on? We're going to be focusing on something called art journaling. And art journaling has its roots in what I call expressive mixed media. And if you've listened to me in class before, you know that mixed media actually is multiple mediums put together. And meaning like, paint and collage and drawing and different pieces like that. And when I say expressive mixed media, I mean it's in a way that's like not traditional, like it's not, ink and watercolor or something like that. It's got a different kind of look to it, and I will show you guys some examples shortly. I have also taught a class before to adults and to kids called art journaling, and that definitely, like I said, it has its roots in mixed media. And there are lots of different journals that people can end up making. I've got many of them down here, but I'll show you guys. Some people think of this as pretty fancy stuff. I don't expect that everybody's going to have the materials that it takes to make these things, but I will try to make it easier. So if you have limited supplies, you'll still be able to get some interesting stuff out of this experience. So this is an art journal that I used, and it's got decorative foam stamps, and it's got watercolors on it and things like that. Some of these things you'll have, some of them you won't. Let's see here. When you open it up, and I'm still trying to talk to you guys just about what expressive mixed media is. It's essentially, let me see if I can see over here. It is a lot of color, a lot of layers, and it's something that people usually think is attractive. It's very expressive. It's very much about themselves. There's no right or wrong, and you just literally are putting on the page whatever it is that you're feeling. And you let the colors and the shapes and the lines and all those other good things kind of do the talking for you. This is a larger book that I made. It actually has a spine that has threads through it, so it holds in the signatures. It's actual bookmaking. And you can get that fancy if you want to, and there are a lot of tutorials out there on how to do that. But at the same time, if you wanted to keep it simpler, you could keep it simpler. So this is just a couple examples of my work. These are things that I've made. So that's the big guns. This is the smaller guns. So you don't necessarily always have to make them, really big. You can make them really tiny. I like to work tiny actually a lot of the times because one of the things that this does is it's not as much work. I'll be perfectly honest with you. You can get a lot more stuff done in a shorter span of time. And there's just something so cute about a mini. I love a good mini. So again, lots and lots of colors, lots and lots of layers. But, and this is fancy. I will admit, this is something, it's not only got the bookbinding threads for the signature, but this is actually fabric that I made using mixed media techniques. So this is fancy pants. This one is going to be a lot more achievable for you guys, where if you wanted to just go and use, a certain size piece of paper, maybe it's smaller than this, maybe it could be like, the size of like a playing card or something. This can come together after the fact because I've got these rings. So if you just wanted to use like sheets of paper, I'd recommend something harder like cardstock, but we'll get into that a little bit more later, or poster board. But same ideas, just in a different format. And the thing that I like about this one's a little chewed up, so I'll show you guys a different one. The thing about this is if you make, boo-boos, it's nice because you can just take pages out, or maybe you haven't even bound it and it's just separate pages at that point. But I don't know, I feel like it's a little bit more flexible in terms of choices that you can make. So these are just some examples of what it is that you can do. Never give up. The other thing you'll notice with some of these is that there's ones that are kind of more abstract, where the focus is kind of more on the lines and the colors, and it doesn't have a focal point like well, I mean, it does have a focal point because not only do I have an arrow drawn here, but I use text a lot as a focal point. But if you just wanted to kind of, cover that up and just have like a celebration of like colors and shapes and things like that, that's totally a possibility. It can be totally abstract. It doesn't have to have a message or a meaning. You can just be kind of celebrating the process. But a lot of the stuff that I do, I don't know why I feel compelled to do this, but I shouldn't say always, I often will put in, some kind of image that makes it a little bit like, I don't know, it tells a little bit more of a story. This one is kind of more abstract. Again, there's the writing right there, but, this is just a tag that I found. We're going to talk about using junk mail and stuff like that. But, it doesn't always have to have an image or like a message. It often can, but it doesn't have to be that way. I wish I had a better example of one that's just kind of like exploring, these are just kind of fun explorations. These are pages that I haven't finished. I've just gone and done background. You might be able to see like a teensy bit of like drawing that I've done on top of it. But this is just watercolor and just kind of playing around with the different, what the watercolor does and just kind of enjoying the colors blending together and stuff like that. So anyways, I'm going to stop talking. Next thing I'm going to be showing you how to do is put together a book or like use pages in case if you wanted to kind of go this route where we can kind of collect it all together after the fact, or if you wanted to actually make something, a smaller scale probably, but if you wanted to make something that, it had a little bit more of a book form to it. So I'll offer you those two choices. All right, see you in a bit. Okay, gang, so we're back. There's lots and lots of options for what you can make to house whatever artwork you're going to be making inside of an art journal. So there are lots of different ways that you can do an art journal. I showed you guys some of them just a pinch earlier. If you wanted to just work on, separate little cards like this, that's totally fine. I mean, of course, they can be bigger. They can be whatever size you want them to be. Anytime that you can work with heavier paper, it's super helpful. This is actually like a poster board kind, and the thing is about mixed media is because we're going to be adding a lot of water and a lot of different materials onto these things, the better, thicker quality paper that you can have, the better. They're going to stand up to it better. So if you just want to work with like cards like poster board, something like that, you can have them be loose cards. There are lots and lots of options. When we get back, it's possible for me to show you guys how to make this little number right here. And you can see that these little cards like snuggle right in. So that's a possibility. So you can work with just simple cards. I rounded the edges on mine using a corner punch, but you don't have to do that. What else could you do? You can use just regular sheets of paper. Since we're working with smaller staplers, you probably would want to keep your paper shorter. I think that this piece right here is like 6.5 by 4 inches, so that when you take it and you fold it in half, like this, you get a set. Actually, you just want to keep folding them. Fold them all. The trick is that you have to make them thick enough that it's an interesting book and you have a couple pages to work on, but at the same time not so thick that you're not able to staple through. So what you would do is you would take your pages, now that I folded them and creased them, just kind of nestle them inside of each other, kind of like this, and then what you would do, and actually if you wanted to poke a couple holes, you could poke a couple holes in here and then use some string to hold everything together, or if you wanted to get a stapler, you could go and you could staple right in the seam of it, and then you would end up having a little book that way. You could trim the edges if that bothers you. That as you pile in more pieces of paper into the little book, it does have a tendency to kind of stick out. I know you guys have seen this before. See that, how it starts to stick out a little bit? Doesn't bother me a bit, but at the same time, if it bothers you, you can trim that down. So that is another way that you could potentially make a book. Googling online, so many choices on, or so many tutorials on how to make books. Now I'm going to bring you guys back to our friend, the e-zine, or not the e-zine, I'm sorry, the zines. Remember how we did that at the beginning of school, and I had you guys fold down books, or fold books out of single pieces of paper? Another thing that you can consider doing is cutting up a piece of, what am I trying to say? It's a brown paper bag. That's what it is. You can cut up a brown paper bag and get, a piece that's similar. It's going to be larger than a regular 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper, although you could just use that if you want to. And what you can do is, I'll show you again the steps on how to fold the zine. So the first thing that you're going to do is you're going to fold your piece of paper in half like this. You want it to try to be as even as you can. I'm going to work this way. I feel like that's a little bit easier. Ha ha ha, she says. All right, so a little bit easier this way. You want to make sure that you're making your marks nice and crisp. Your folds. It's called a fold, Ms. D. And then I open it back up, and now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go and I'm going to fold in half like this. Crease it again. And if you're working, this is like craft paper, so it's a little bit different than brown paper. But if you're working with brown paper, meaning from like a grocery bag or something like that, it's going to be a little thicker. So that's a good thing in terms of making mixed media, but it's going to be a little harder in terms of creasing. So you really want to make sure that you're creasing really, really well. You can use the edge of like a pen or something like that to kind of smooth it down. Like if you want to smooth it down like that, you could do that. I'm just going to use my fingers. So now what I'm doing is I've gone and I've folded it into 4 sections this way. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to open it up and I'm going to fold it. Hot dog. I'm going to fold it the long way. Like this. And you want to try to be as accurate as possible with your folding. All right. So now I'm going to have to step away for a second and get some scissors. Didn't get my scissors out, so bear with me. Oops. Okay, yep, still recording. Now I've got some scissors, and we need to take the paper. It's got 8 sections, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. We're going to take it, we're going to fold it in half again. And the trick is that when you're doing this, remember, you only want to cut on the fold, okay? So it's on the folded side, not on the flap side. You want to fold on the cut on the folded side. So now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to cut right along here like this, right to that intersection, right there, not beyond, okay? Open it up. You know that this is the hardest part, so you've got your book. It'll look something like this. If you've done it correctly, you cut on the fold. And then what you're going to do, I'm already telling you, I'm going to bend this back because I know it's going to behave a little bit better if I just bend it back a little bit. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take, I'm going to kind of gather these two together so that it looks something like this. And then I'm going to take these 2 flaps and I'm going to fold it together like that. And that is how we get that book, if you guys remember. So as I'm folding it, there's going to be one kind of arrangement, because I can just like fold page over page over page, but there's going to be one arrangement that's going to feel kind of the best, and that actually feels pretty good. And then what you want to do is you just want to take the whole thing and then just really squish it down. And what this gets you is a front cover, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then the back cover. So technically 8 places where you can be putting art. If these flaps bother you, you can use a little bit of glue stick to shut them. Don't tape them, don't staple them, just use a little bit of glue stick or something like that. And yeah, and there's the other little flappy guy. So if you want to shut those, you can shut them. No need to staple this. That was a misconception in class. You don't need to staple this. So now, and this is actually a pretty good sized book. So you are ready to start filling it with all kinds of wonderful artsy mixed media, expressive mixed media goodness. All right.